Psychedelic plant medicines have been taking the world by storm. And this is largely due to the fact that many people say taking one night of a psychedelic plant medicine is like 10 years of psychotherapy all packed up into one night. So I have been taking plant medicines for 7 years. So what does hundreds of nights of plant medicine ceremonies and thousands of hours of psychotherapy look like? Well, I'm going to share some wisdom that I've learned along the way. Here we go. So to fully understand the pieces of wisdom that I learned from plant medicine, you have to know a little bit about my backstory. So I'm going to tell you a very small part of my story, and it will help you understand this wisdom. So hopefully it can save you years of therapy as well. So my upbringing was a little chaotic. I was studious. I enjoyed going to school. However, my home life wasn't the best. Everyone that was around me that was older than me was addicted to some substance to varying levels, some much worse than others, but overall, that addict mentality was something that I grew up in. And it's something that I fought very hard to get away from. But during that time, I was going to high school. I found a medical program. I was applying to colleges. And at the time, I really thought I wanted to be a doctor. But all that time, I was living with my dad, who was struggling with addiction. My parents were separated, and my dad definitely was the most addicted to substances of the rest of the family by far. And the reason why I was living with him is for another video, I guess. But really, I was living with him, he was addicted, and I really wanted to help him out. So I started looking up online different ways to help people that were addicted to substances. I found the regulars like Al-Anon and the rest. But then I found ayahuasca. I wasn't quite sure what it was, and I wasn't really about the mind-altering substances, but from what I read, it helps people a lot very quickly, and quick is what I needed at that moment. I needed my dad to be good to go and more stable so that I could focus on school and college and all of that stuff. So, long story short, he was afraid to go drink ayahuasca alone, and I went with him, and that was my first night. And ever since then, I helped volunteer around ayahuasca churches. I went to college. I went after pre-medical, and then I started managing ayahuasca churches to varying levels throughout that time. Wisdom tip number one is the mind will believe anything that you feed it. And it doesn't just have to be you. It can be anyone around you as well. Now, one of the things my dad did for me was he really tried to convince me that I wanted to be a doctor. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. He was trying to do something right by me. He wanted to make sure that I became a doctor, so I was set up and successful. However, I didn't want to be a doctor. I thought that I wanted to be a doctor because I was being told constantly I would make a good doctor, I should be a doctor, I would be great at being a doctor, and that's all our conversations typically centered around, which really slowly pushed me towards wanting to be a doctor because my mind started to believe it, although my heart wasn't really fully into it. Now, I had some great teachers along the way that really helped me figure out what I wanted and were just amazing impacts on me, but for the most part, I was being fed that information. And sometimes we don't consider that the people around us can really put us in one direction or another. If people are constantly telling us something about ourselves that doesn't necessarily ring true, it can slowly become true. Like if our friends are constantly telling us that we're terrible with our money, or we don't make good choices in friends, or our people we choose to be romantic with aren't good choices, or we're just angry people, that can slowly become something that we believe in our own mind. And also, building off of this, you can make yourself believe anything as well. If every time you go into the store, you just believe that you're bad with money, and that's something that you tell yourself, you're feeding your mind that. And although having more money is something that you could or could not fix depending on your circumstances, how you spend money is something that you can change for the most part. So constantly telling yourself you're bad with money, you spend your check as fast as it comes in, that's gonna make an impact on what you believe, and you're feeding that, and your mind is going to believe that. So I use the example of money because I felt like it would hit home for the most people, because many people have had that experience where either they thought they were bad with money or something similar and small. But this can be much larger. Like for me, with my parents telling me that I wanted to be a doctor when I wasn't quite sure, or me looking for approval from other people and believing that my approval isn't coming from within me. It has to come from other people, and constantly going and looking for approval from other people. Somewhat building off that first lesson, the second lesson is we have to learn to find acceptance from within ourselves, not from other people. My early childhood, I spent a lot of time looking for the acceptance of other people, and it got me into a lot of trouble. First and foremost, it set me down a career path that I didn't really want to follow. But second of all, it got me doing things that I didn't necessarily want to do. And it's done good things, but for the most part, it's done bad things. One of the good things that it did was looking for approval from my dad and wanting to be helpful. I went to drink ayahuasca, something I wouldn't have normally done. However, in general, there were things that I would do for people and things that I would do that just wasted my time that I could have done doing other things. Like, for example, helping my dad out with his job because he was getting distracted due to his addiction, and he needed help to catch up because he was getting high. So like I was helping him, but it wasn't benefiting anyone except for my dad, and it was kind of enabling him. But I got praise at the end of helping him from working. So it kind of happened that way where I started looking for that from him instead of other people. There were many reasons as to why. But how this could affect you too is, let's say you have a boss and the boss knows and picks up on the fact that you take acceptance and acknowledgement from other people and not from within yourself. They will slowly give you more and more work and less praise, knowing that your productivity will go up the less they praise you and the more work they give you, because you're constantly going to be looking for that acceptance from your boss, your superior, or your coworkers. You might even end up getting other coworkers pawning work off onto you because they know you'll do it and be happy with, hey, attaboy kind of style thing. So when you get that acceptance to come from within, from the inside, which is something that I'm still working on, but I've made major progress on, when you hand something in to your boss, or when you complete something, or when someone asks you something that you don't want to do, you're like, I did a great job. Or in the sense they ask you something you don't want to do, you're like, I don't want to do that. I'm busy. My time is more valuable than this. I love you, but I got other things to do. So really, if you want to get ahead of everyone else, and I think this problem affects most people, start thinking, how can I get the acceptance to come from within instead of from without? Because when it's without, it can be withheld and weaponized. When it's from within, it can be a force and a forge that pushes you forward. Number 3, this is a big one. Plant medicines and psychedelic medicines in general, they aren't responsible for your healing, and they don't guarantee healing. You do. So if you're just sitting with ayahuasca or other plant medicines and believing, okay, well now I'm going to get better because I drank these, that's not exactly how it works. Whenever I sit down to drink anything or take any type of plant medicine for the purpose of fixing my situation or getting better, which is primarily and really the only reason I take them, I sit down and I am in the mentality of, I am going to work. This is work that I am doing. I'm not just lollygagging and going and off and doing whatever I want. This is work to get into my brain and try to fix some things that have gone awry over the years. And anyone you ask about plant medicines are going to say it is work every time you drink, and that's because it is. And that work is what guarantees your healing. I like to think of it like a tool. So let's just say a pen and paper is our normal, regular way of keeping track of information. And let's say psychedelic plant medicines are like the computer. Well, obviously you can get through a lot more information a lot quicker through a computer. However, you have to put in the work. You have to type it out. You have to organize the computer. You have to make sure it's going the direction that you want it to go. If you don't take the time to do that, the computer is basically a waste of time. It's just useless and it's not helping you. And honestly, it's killing your time that you could have been doing on your own. So if you are thinking of sitting with plant medicines, make sure to take into account that it is work and you're going to have to show up. It's not easy breezy. Whether it's a good experience or a bad experience, overall, there are things that you're going to have to work through that if you don't, it's just going to be a lost experience. So it took me 7 years of learning through plant medicines to put this information together with much, much more. However, it is a very valuable tool that has sped me up faster than therapy ever would have. However, I put the work in for that. And if you are considering sitting with psychedelic plant medicines to speed up your healing and your growth, make sure you do it with someone you trust. Now, I have been organizing plant medicine retreats for many, many years. And if you're interested in coming on one of mine or just helping my help finding one for you that's a good fit, go ahead and let me know in the comments below. I will do my best to help you. Otherwise, if you want more tips like this and understanding plant medicine or just things that I've learned in my life, click that subscribe button. And as always, I'll see you next time.